Next on the news.
Seeing the photos just brought back some beautiful memories of that day.
Bishop Robert Brennan looks back, the shepherd of the diocese celebrating 1 year in Brooklyn. Spare change for a good cause. These Catholic school students are leading the way as the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign kicks off. He could be the first millennial saint, but before he gets the heavenly title, he's been given a superhero cape. The new Carlo Acuti's comic book is out now. Plus,
a Christmas staple in New York City is shining bright.
They may show up on your TV one day. The anchors of a Catholic Academy news station stopped by to show us just what the future of journalism could look like. I'm Christine Persichetti. This special edition of Currents News starts right now. One year down, hopefully many more to go. This week, Bishop Robert Brennan celebrated his first anniversary as the 8th Bishop of Brooklyn. It's been a busy 12 months. Just to break it down, the bishop has visited 127 parishes, celebrated 25 confirmations, and toured 25 academies. He's also ordained 3 priests and 6 transitional deacons. He's celebrated holidays and spearheaded synod listening sessions. And on his anniversary, he joined me right here on Currents News. I asked him to look back on what it's been like adjusting to life in the big city.
It's an easy place to be at home here in Brooklyn and Queens. People are just warm. We tell it like it is in Brooklyn and Queens. Sure. And you just feel very, very much at home. Still trying to work around that traffic issue. I don't know. It's still.
Boy, yeah. All those holiday shoppers, that's for sure. And exactly 1 year ago today, the two of us were sitting right here after you were installed. So let's take a look back quickly at your installation day.
On Friday, I went for a walk exploring the area, and I found myself midway along the promenade to the Manhattan Bridge, looking out over the Brooklyn Bridge, the skyline of lower Manhattan, and of course one of those ships on the water, and in the distance, the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of welcome, a symbol of hope for immigrants, and in some ways, an icon for this great diocese of immigrants.
Such great pictures. What goes through your mind when you reflect on that day?
Oh, actually, looking at
emotional.
Seeing the photos just brought back some beautiful memories of that day. A couple of comical ones. I mean, it just seems strange to be wearing a mask.
I know.
Oh man, we were just so accustomed to it, and it's only been a couple of months, and yet we were careful and didn't even know what we were walking into just a whole other round. And on November 30th of last year, everything seemed like we were moving forward, but we still had those masks on at certain times.
Absolutely. Always have to be careful, right? When you got here, it was the midst of the synod process that must have helped you get acclimated to the diocese. I know you hit the ground running, visiting churches, visiting schools. What have you learned in the past year from those visits?
Okay, exactly. Those synod visits were so well timed for me, and Bishop Damasio had set it up in a very nice way. So we were at the diocesan phase, and they were organized according to the deaneries, which meant it got me into each neighborhood. So it would take me a while. It still has taken me time to get to all the parishes, but I've been to all the neighborhoods.
Wow.
You know, through that synod process.
Right. And another thing that came out through the synod process was we learned parishioners want more of a focus on the area's diverse population. And let's listen to Sister Marianne LaPiccolo, who's leading the diocese's synod efforts.
The challenge is, how do we make this one parish community? And then how do we build community within the parish?
So what are some ways we can preserve the diocese's rich diversity and yet build a community at the same time?
We talk a lot about the rich diversity of this city and as a result of the church in the city. And as Sister Marianne pointed out, one of the things that I found that really was new to me, something of a surprise, was seeing the diversity within the parish. It's not like you have a Chinese-speaking parish, a Spanish-speaking parish, an English-speaking parish, and an Italian. I can think of one parish in particular where you have all of that in one the one place.
9 a.m. is Chinese, 10 a.m. is
exactly,
right.
Exactly. And so there's a challenge, but there's also an opportunity in bringing everybody together. Diversity is good. It's important, but it's not the end. It's the unity that really matters. So we have unity in diversity.
And once again, congratulations to the Bishop of Brooklyn, Robert Brennan. Turning now to the holidays, there's a big push in the Diocese of Brooklyn to make sure that every child gets a gift this Christmas. And some students are leading the way. They're donating anything they can, spare change or leftover lunch money, to the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has more on their heartwarming mission of giving.
This story is about a $10 bill and a paper trail that starts here and ends on Christmas morning underneath a tree. The bill was brought to school at Our Lady of Mercy Catholic Academy by 6-year-old Samuel Ortiz Brand. It's his very own to spend.
We'll give them money and they can buy the toys because it makes the kid happy, and then they can have a good Christmas also.
Donations in the box, guys. Let's go.
Samuel's first grade class is raising money for the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign. Last year, he opened plenty of toys under his own tree. And this year's wish list is pretty long.
A Mario car, a real dog, a real cat, 5 cats, on a whale set. Yeah, that's everything.
But he knows there are kids who have a lot less than he does. He wants his bill to be spent buying toys for them.
They didn't have toys, and God didn't have the chance to give them money, so we're gonna give them money.
Samuel made sure his bill was tucked in tight among others like it, and some change in the donation box on his teacher, Mrs. Ray's desk.
When I explained to them that there are some children that, believe it or not, wake up on Christmas with nothing, they were shocked, and they wanted to help. Are we done here?
The students wrote letters to the Tablet to make sure their money was spent
Dollhouses and balls.
exactly the way they want. It's a hope that's as real as Christmas magic, the kind the Tablet makes possible every year.
I can't explain. To see them so excited, what can I say? It's a beautiful thing.
Not only do these students have a wish for their money this Christmas, they have one for yours too. In Forest Hills, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Feeling inspired? How can you not be after that story? You can join the kids. There's still time to help the Tablet reach their goal, and they need your help. We've gotten our first Bright Christmas total so far. The paper has already raised more than $10,000 for kids in need, but they're still a ways away from their goal of $125,000 before Christmas. The need is great this year for families fighting inflation, and here's how you can get involved. Make a check out to the Bright Christmas Fund and mail it to Bright Christmas LB number 2118, P.O. Box 95,000, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the zip code 19195. Or you can make your donation online at thetablet.org/brightchristmas. Want to learn even more about the Bright Christmas campaign? Currents News has you covered. We'll be airing a special that shows you all things Bright Christmas, from its generous donors to the grateful recipients that your contributions are going to. That'll air on Wednesday, December 7th at our normal time, 7 p.m., right here on Net TV. Fontbonne Hall Academy, a high school in Bay Ridge, honored a former student who died serving the people of God. Bishop Brennan celebrated Mass on the 42nd anniversary of Sister Ida Ford's death. She was murdered along with 3 other missionaries while she was helping the poor in El Salvador during their bloody civil war. No one was ever held accountable for their deaths. Ida was born in Brooklyn and graduated from the school in 1957 before becoming a Mary Knowles sister. Fontbonne named a building after her, and today Bishop Brennan blessed a new science suite right in that building. There's a shakeup happening over at the NYPD. 4 chiefs in the department are apparently set to retire at the end of the month. Reports say the chiefs of transit, housing, support services, and special operations all plan to leave the job before the new year. This comes just days after the retirement of NYPD Chief of Department Kenneth Corey. It also comes at a time when crime is up in the city, but prosecutions are down, which is nothing to brag about for our Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. According to data from the district attorney's office, since taking office on January 1st, Bragg has downgraded more than half of his felony cases to misdemeanors, and he's lost half of the felony cases that went to court. Let's break down the numbers. 51% of felony cases Bragg has handled have resulted in convictions. That's compared to 68% of cases in 2019, the last year before the pandemic disrupted the courts. While Bragg has downgraded 52% of felonies to misdemeanors, his predecessor downgraded just 39% 3 years ago. As far as bail is concerned, it's been requested in 49% of Bragg's felony cases compared to 69% in 2019. And the Manhattan DA has declined to prosecute 35% of the felonies that have crossed his desk. Now to another concerning story, one that might only get worse as Christmas comes. There's a so-called triple-demic circulating right now, and it seems babies are the prime targets. Mike Valerio has the story.
The holiday season is in full swing and people are hitting the roads and skies at nearly pre-pandemic numbers. At the same time, a triple threat of viruses looms. Respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, in particular, is causing major concerns for children. And according to Dr. Anthony Fauci, it's at a critical point, approaching an emergency.
In some regions of the country, we're seeing that the hospital system for pediatrics are at the point of almost being overwhelmed. When you have very little wiggle room of intensive care beds, when you have like almost all the intensive care beds that are occupied.
With the trifecta of COVID, flu, and RSV circulating right now, Dr. Fauci says protecting yourself this holiday season begins with your vaccination status.
We have 2 of the 3 of the trifecta. We have vaccinations for clearly COVID, particularly with the updated boosters that are now available. We have vaccinations for influenza.
Medical experts suggest that if you're going to be getting together with others, go back to the basics and use common sense. Stay up to date on vaccines, wash your hands, and wear a mask around others if you're in the vulnerable category. Suggest everybody take a quick COVID test also before getting together. One silver lining, though, other countries have already seen their flu and RSV numbers peak early and start to come down.
We're hoping that that's going to happen because both flu and RSV have come to us earlier than it usually does.
Mike Valerio, Currents News.
New York City emergency rooms are also struggling to handle RSV cases. The head of the pediatric intensive care unit at Long Island Jewish Hospital in Queens said the 37-bed unit is already over capacity with more than half of its patients with RSV. According to the CDC, some 80,000 children under the age of 5 are usually hospitalized with RSV each year. But doctors say the disease is spreading more quickly because so many children were living in a germ-proof bubble for years. At the beginning of November, the city reported more than 4,500 positive cases. That's a nearly 10-fold increase since mid-September, when they reported nearly 500 cases. The virus is expected to peak this month. There's a lot more news headed your way. New information tonight out of Louisiana, where a parish is mourning the loss of its former pastor and a church employee. Plus, dinner and a meeting. The Bidens host the Macrons for a lavish state dinner, but first, they tackled some pressing global issues. And tackling local issues in their school community, the news team at Our Lady of Grace Catholic Academy, they came to check out Currents News and got very comfortable doing my job. Tonight on Currents News, the investigation continues.
We lost 2 wonderful people.
A former pastor and a parish associate found dead, burned beyond recognition. Now churchgoers are turning to prayer and waiting for answers. Why the parish murders? The Covington Police Department in Louisiana has released a timeline of the final hours of Ruth Pratt's and Father Otis Young Jr. Pratt was reported missing last Sunday after her car was stolen and her phone found ditched in a dumpster. On Monday, they found her car, and then they learned Father Young was also missing. Only a few hours later, 2 bodies were found burned. Their parish, St. Peter's, prayed that the 2 would be found alive, only to have their worst fears confirmed.
In Ruth Pratt's and Father Otis, we lost 2 pillars of our community. We lost 2 wonderful people.
Ruth Pratt's was identified as the second victim in the double homicide on Thursday. Her body, along with that of Father Otis Young Jr.'s, were found burned beyond recognition behind a glass store in downtown Covington. The cause of death for both victims has been ruled as blunt force trauma, and both have been classified as a homicide.
We will often wonder why God chose to take these 2 of His children at this time in this manner.
Both victims were members of St. Peter's Church. Ruth served there as a pastoral associate for decades. Father Young served as pastor for about 10 years. He was an accountant before he was ordained a priest in 2001 at the age of 49. He retired in July.
Father Otis and Ruth gave of themselves in service to the people of God. Father Otis is a beloved pastor who served God and His people with a pastor's heart until his death. Ruth, a dedicated and valued associate, dedicated her life to helping the people of St. Peter Parish grow in relationship with God.
Police have arrested Antonio Donde Tyson. He faces 2 counts of first-degree murder and second-degree kidnapping. Police have not released a motive, but say it doesn't appear Tyson was specifically targeting the victims. Meantime, the Covington community continues to reel from the shocking events. In a statement, the Archdiocese of New Orleans said the horror of the events that have unfolded here in Covington is beyond shocking. The pain, sadness, and disbelief that something like this could happen will stay with us, but particularly those who are most directly affected, for a very long time. Father Otis's funeral mass has been scheduled for Monday afternoon at St. Peter's Church. Archbishop Gregory Amond of the Archdiocese of New Orleans will be the celebrant. President Biden pulled the brake on the rail strike. He signed legislation Friday imposing a labor agreement between rail companies and workers. It prevents a work stoppage that could have cost $2 billion a day. Biden said it was a tough move for him to make. He considers himself the most pro-union president, and he's previously argued against congressional intervention in railway disputes. A buffet of topics was on the menu, and lobster, too. The White House hosted its first state dinner since 2019 Thursday. President Biden dined with French President Emmanuel Macron. Before dinner, both leaders pledged their support to Ukraine. Jen Sullivan has more.
The outside of the White House decked in U.S. and French flags Thursday morning as President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill welcomed the leader of America's oldest ally, French President Emmanuel Macron, and his wife Brigitte. Thursday night marking the first time Biden hosted a state dinner since taking office. The nation's leaders sitting down earlier in the day for a 3-hour closed-door meeting in the Oval Office before holding a joint news conference.
France is one of our strongest partners.
Macron raising concerns over Biden's Inflation Reduction Act coming at the expense of European companies, as well as concerns over climate change. The situation in Ukraine at the heart of their talks as the war enters its 10th month. Both nations pledging to hold Russian President Vladimir Putin accountable.
He's inflicting incredible carnage on the civilian population of Ukraine, bombing nurseries, hospitals, children's homes. It's sick. The idea that Putin is ever going to defeat Ukraine is beyond comprehension.
Macron acknowledging the deep political ramifications of the war in Ukraine.
Having the US strongly supporting the Ukrainians in that time is very important, not just for the Ukrainians. For the Europeans, we are.
I'm Jen Sullivan reporting.
Still to come on Currents News, he could soon be a saint, but for now, he's a superhero. We'll show you Carlo the comic. And this.
A Christmas staple in New York City is shining bright. The Rockefeller Center tree was lit Wednesday, marking the
Boy, news anchors are getting younger and younger these days. Meet the Brooklyn Catholic students coming for my job. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Carlo the comic. Blessed Carlo Acutis, who could soon be the first millennial saint, is the star of a new comic strip. Digital Disciple, Carlo Acutis and the Eucharist is out now, telling the story of the real-life teen who used his knowledge of computers and technology to document the world's Eucharistic miracles online. The tech whiz teen died in 2006 from leukemia. He was beatified in 2020, making him one step closer to sainthood. Interested in seeing more? You can buy the comic online at shop.voyagecomics.com. Just search for the issue. Again, it's called Digital Disciple, Carlo Acutis and the Eucharist. It'll cost you just $6.99. From a soon-to-be saint to some aspiring anchors.
Prepare you for the next very busy 12 days coming up.
Tomorrow starts at 12 Days of Christmas.
You're watching the anchors of OLGCA News recording their newscast on the Currents News set. The students at Our Lady of Grace Catholic Academy in Brooklyn spread the good news at their school every other week. But today, they visited our newsroom to see how we produce a newscast.
We basically get to explore more about like the news field and see like a real set, and it's just super nice. And we read off the prompter, and it feels like the real thing.
There are 7 students who work on the school's newscast. It's a program that started 5 years ago at the school. The students have learned how to write and anchor and will soon learn to edit, and they'll probably eventually take over for me. But not yet, although they were really good. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.